Hey y'all, welcome back to Krista's Kitchen. So we have a rainstorm coming in and we're always wanting to continue to challenge ourselves. So we're going to try and make some beef stew, but pressure can it. So I'm only going to make a few. We're making 3 so that 2 will go on the shelves and we can have for later, and 1 we're going to have tomorrow night and taste test if we want to try anything different, change anything up, anything like that. So I have a lot more vegetables than we'll need for this meal because I'm going to make something else after that in preparation for real dinner for tonight. But I found some beef stew meat at the grocery store. I've never made beef stew, and I'm also trying to stock away just a few things because we're expecting to have a really harsh winter. So I'm not going to anything massive. We're just doing 3 quart-sized jars for today. If this turns out well, then I'll definitely replicate it and try it again. But I want to start small so that I'm not wasting so much stuff. So I've already got most everything prepped. I've got about 3 pounds of stew meat, just slightly under. Some potatoes, carrots, some of my freezer celery, and a small onion that I've diced up, a few seasonings, and I've already heated my jar, and I've got some beef broth in there. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to bring my 3 jars over. And like I said, I've never done this before, so we're just going to kind of work through it. And by the end of the video, we'll also have the taste test reveal to see if I would change anything or what we would need to do this again. So let's get started. I'm just using a cup. I want to kind of split this between them as evenly as I can. So that was a little less than 2 cups. So I'd say about 2 cups per jar is right under a pound. Now this is also very trimmed beef. I trimmed off most of the fat. So I'm going to use about 1/4 cup of onion in each of these jars. And I'm just doing 1 item at a time, less chance that I will forget something. At least that's what I hope. Let's see. So it'll be a little over 1/4 cup in each because I'm not saving that little bit. I already have my onion chopped up and mixed with everything for the chicken pot pie tonight. So I don't need any more onion. Alright, and then I'm going to use 1/4 cup of celery. So I have my previously frozen and chopped celery. I'm going to put down in here. One thing I like about freezing celery, I don't like the grainy texture of celery. And I find that if I freeze it and not use it fresh, you lose that grainy texture, which is what I love. I don't like that stringy kind of mess. At least it's not appetizing to me. We're going to add in 1/2 cup to each jar of our veggies. We're getting kind of full. We're going to have to pack it down. I always put my potatoes down in water whenever I'm cutting them. That way they don't brown and get nasty. You see all the room. We need to leave up until this bottom rim empty. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to add my spices and then finish adding the rest of my veggies. Since this is the first time I've ever done it, I don't want to add too much spice because I know leaving anything in these jars has the potential to amplify the seasoning. So I'm starting with what may be a small amount, but I'm going to do 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning in each jar, and then just about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. You don't have to have salt to pressure can, at least not this. And from what I've read, you don't have to for many things. But I'm doing it for flavoring. But I also don't want to overdo it. I mean, I can almost guarantee we're going to need some more salt when we pull it out and heat it up for eating. But I don't want to overdo it and run the chance of ruining almost done. So I have almost 4 cups of beef broth that I've warmed up. Also, we're going to add in some more veggies before we do our broth. So I want these nice and full. Let's do an extra 1/4 cup of carrots in each. Oh, I can hear the rain a-coming. And then we're going to do an extra 1/4 cup of potatoes. I don't know, something just seems fun about being able to make this shelf stable and know that I can have a quick dinner and a tasty dinner and just have to heat it up. You don't, like, you can have beef stew in like 5 minutes. Like, that's, to me, that's just crazy. So I'm just filling it up to that line, and then we'll get the air bubbles out and see if we need to top it off with anything. Now I'm just going to take a little plastic knife and wiggle it down the side. Oh yeah. I was curious as to how they're like, oh, so much air, even with us packing it down, but I can just see the air bubbles coming up. So obviously this is a really important step. That went down quite a bit, like over 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to top these off with just a little more up to that 1-inch headspace. They even have tools to help you measure the 1-inch headspace also. I can hear the rain. Alright. Now we're going to take our clean washcloth and just a little bit of vinegar and clean off the rims. I was very messy today, so that definitely needs to happen. This is just to ensure that we get a really good seal on our jars. Clean, washed and dried lids. Down. And just not a lot of wrist action tightening up. We don't want them super tight. We just want them just like that. And we're going to move them back to our canner. Now there's 3 quarts of hot water already down in the bottom of my canner. I'm going to put my lid on and I'm going to move y'all over so y'all can see how our gauges are going to work. Okay, y'all. So we have our heat on a medium high heat, and this is my pressure canner. Well, this is my mother-in-law's pressure canner. She's letting me try it out to see if I want to spend the money on getting my own. But we've got our cans down in it, and this is our little gauge. It also has the weight, but this is what I'm going by. For me being at sea level, we need it at 11 pounds per square inch, so the 11 psi. So I'm going to watch this. But for right now, what I'm waiting to hear is some steam to start coming out of there. I need a steady stream of steam for 10 minutes before I start my timer. And then once I do, I'll need to make sure this is staying set at 11 psi with that steady stream and time it for 90 minutes. It needs 90 minutes to cook with a steady 11 psi for me, and we'll be golden. Okay, y'all, so now we're going to take a look at our beef stew jars that we made yesterday. This one looks good. You see I've already removed the bands and I washed the jar down because one of our jars had siphoned out and it made them all nice and sticky mess. It wasn't horrible, but they were dirty and you don't want to put that in the pantry. But this jar sealed well and this jar sealed well, but this one doesn't seem like it has sealed quite right. So this is the jar we're going to make today. But if you see, this one also siphoned out a lot of the liquid. Now, I've done a lot of reading to see why this happens, and it could be a number of things. One, they said air bubbles, if the headspace was too much or too less. But what I think happened, this is one of the things they listed as well, is the dramatic temperature shifts. So I had trouble really stabilizing my pressure at that 11 psi yesterday. Most of mine was at the 13. Just with us using a camper stove for this, even on the lowest setting, and raising that temperature very slowly, we kept the temperature on low once we reached the right pressure, and I still couldn't get it below 13 psi, which is too high for my area. So I think that's probably why we siphoned. After reading, it says that if less than half of the liquid remains in the jar, it's not safe to eat anymore. We're above half. I'm going to measure just because I'm OCD like that, but I'm going to measure with a measuring tape just to make sure that my eye is not tricking me. But they recommend that this jar is still safe to eat. So we're going to put this on the shelf and this on the shelf. But because this didn't pop or it didn't stay sealed, we're going to test this one, heat this, and test it out today. So I'm going to make some labels and put on these and put these away. We're going to warm this up and we're going to taste test. Alright, y'all, moment of truth. Michael already has his bowl and he's chowing down. He likes it. I didn't add any seasoning to it. We did the half teaspoon of Italian seasoning and the half teaspoon of salt when we made the jars. And today I added a teaspoon of cornstarch for the whole thing. It could be a little bit thicker, but I didn't want it too thick. I think it's the perfect consistency if you ask me. I do feel like it's meat heavy, and next time I'll probably add more veggies, or next time I will add more veggies, just because I like more of the veggies in it. But I mean, we've got huge chunks of meat still in it. The broth, you can see where it's got chunks of meat and carrot and potato that have broken down. Everything is nice and soft. So the true test is we're about to see, is it tender? Is it yummy? Like, what we do. The carrots are wonderful. They're not mush. They still have some texture to them, but they're definitely soft. Potato was yummy. I was afraid I'd have to add, or I was thinking I'd have to add a lot more seasoning to it, but really, it's really good with just what we have. When you push your spoon through it, it's just coming right apart. I'm definitely making some more, y'all. This is exciting. I'm glad it worked. And it worked out perfect that we were going to open up one of our jars anyway and taste test them. So, I'm going to get those other two packed away. I'm going to get on to making our jarred chicken or a canned chicken that we're doing, and we'll have to do the beef stew. I'll probably do another beef stew in a couple of days, but I'm not going to bring you along for that. Thank y'all for joining us, and hopefully you give it a try too. If nothing else, just cook it up regular on the stovetop.